Hey, fellow weirdos, come on in to the library here at Horror Hotel. Say, I just had a strange thing happen. I know, that's hard to believe. Somebody who's known me for years and years and years and years just found out that I write and illustrate and author my own comic book and said, "You make comic books? Did you not know that? You knew that, right? You knew that. I thought everybody knew about Hassle Castle, my comic book, and the newest one, this most recent, latest issue of Hassle Castle, the book of Hassle Castle Tales of Halloween Masks. Right there, the award eligible comic book, entirely 100% written, planned, and illustrated, all by me. In case you didn't know that. I thought all my friends knew that, but maybe some people don't. That's one of those things that I should bring it up every now and then, but I don't. Here's another thing I should bring up is please subscribe to this channel where we explore the best in Halloween masks and, you know, dig the art that goes into the making of masks. Now, if you do know me, and you probably don't, one thing you might know is that when I was a kid, I had very little family, very few relatives around. So I wasn't one of those, you know, like the Waltons or like the family is everything. No, I never had much family. There was my mom, but you see, I was an only child, and my mom was also an only child. Both of us Halloween birthdays, by the way, me and Mom. If you didn't know that, you might have known that. If you did, then I'm sorry for wasting 4 seconds of your time just then. But not a lot of relatives around. Not all those uncles and aunts and cousins and stuff that people talk about. But of the very few family members, extended family, I would say, of the very few relatives I ever had and knew when I was a kid, there was my Aunt Ruth and Uncle Chuck. Actually, they were my great aunt and great uncle because they were my mother's aunt and uncle, but I just called them Aunt Ruth and Uncle Chuck, and they were great. They really were great people. They were wonderful, and I'm glad they were there in my formative centuries. But anyway, their last name was Carlisle. Charles Carlile and Ruth Carlisle, and they ran a business in Crestline, Ohio called Carlisle Jewelry, and Uncle Chuck was a jeweler and was a watch repairman and had this workshop in his basement where he was always wearing the little, you know, magnifying thing and working on repairing watches, wristwatches, and pocket watches and other timepieces for humans in the vicinity. But the great thing about it is that at some point in my life I became aware that there was a mask. I'm reaching in the wrong direction. I did that on purpose to just misdirect you, you see. There was a mask called Carlisle, spelled the same way Chuck Carlisle, my uncle, spelled it. C-A-R-L-I-S-L-E. What would that be? El Silrac, backwards. Just if you need to remember it. Carlisle, my relative, and Carlisle, the Don Post mask. Clearly, you know, I loved that there was a monster when I found out. I don't know what age I was when I found this out, but I loved it that there was a monster that had the same name as some relatives, the Carliles. And Carlisle, C-A-R-L-I-S-L-E, with a silent S in there, is an old monster mask that was in production for many years in the 60s and 70s from Don Post Studios originally. I think he first came out in 1967. Wow. Now, I have never seen a green copy of Carlisle. This is a glow-in-the-dark one. I've never seen just a dark green or a green like a Frankenstein mask. But according to the ancients, according to the writings of the scribes, yes, the ancients who wrote the original sacred book of mask lore and history, which would probably look a lot like this book if there was any such thing. That's not what this is. No, this is Better Living Through Chemistry. No, but if there was such a thing, it would tell us that there were originally some green copies of Carlisle back in the 60s. And I guess it just wasn't a big seller with an ordinary Frankenstein-y kind of paint job with the hair painted gray and the face painted green. So the next thing they did was not to come out with a glow-in-the-dark one. It was to come out with the one everybody remembers, which is called Rainbow Carlisle. Today, he wasn't actually called Rainbow Carlisle in any of the catalogs. I don't believe he was just called Carlisle. And Carlisle had this weird paint job, unlike any other mask. He was blue with bright pink and yellow highlights, and it didn't make a lot of sense, and it didn't make sense to even when we were kids, but you kind of thought, well, that's Carlisle the monster, that's what he looks like.
Nice.
He's got these weird colors going on. I'm pretty sure they were influenced by the work of a very famous, very great artist called Basil Gogos. Now, Basil Gogos, and I got to meet him a few times, by the way, was incredibly talented and had a knack for painting portraits in strange colors. And those went on the cover of famous Monsters magazines, and a lot of Don Post masks were sold to readers of Famous Monsters magazine and other magazines, but especially Famous Monsters when it would use, you know, the Basil Gogos cover portrait of some character from a movie done in these weird, insane colors with all these bright colors. And sometimes people came away thinking those colors were supposed to be the color of the real monster, but most people got it, that that was a stylistic thing, almost unique to Basil Gogos. But the blue, pink, yellow, it didn't make sense, but that was what the monster looked like. And since those days, I have seen many attempts by many artists and mask painters to paint other masks to look like the style of a Basil Gogos painting, and it almost never works because you know, when you apply all those seemingly random bright colors, when you do it on 2D, wow, it looks like there's strange, unearthly, dreamy lighting hitting the face. But when you try to do something in 3 dimensions and paint it like that, to me the results usually look more like something along the lines of a vandalized train car than a dramatic paint job for a monster. But the Rainbow Carlisle was available for some years, and a Don Post glow-in-the-dark version, like this one, was indeed available for a short time. I think only 1 year, maybe 2 years, the late 70s. You could get a glow-in-the-dark Carlisle, just like this. And by the way, I don't know what movie he's supposed to represent. I don't think he's based on any particular movie, but the one thing he always reminded me of, and I don't know which one I saw first, so I don't know whether he reminded me of the movie or the movie reminded me of the mask. I don't know. But in the movie The Raven, not the one from the 1930s by Universal with Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, not that The Raven, the one from 1963 with Boris Karloff and Vincent Price and Peter Lorre. There's a scene where Vincent Price's dead father briefly wakes up momentarily in his coffin, and he kind of has the look of this or the Vern Langdon zombie mask, and it kind of, well, that makeup kind of reminds me of this. I don't know if it was inspired by that scene in the movie, but that's the closest thing I can think of. Or, of course, if you're insane, you might be familiar with the Argentina, the movie from Argentina that was pretty obscure and now has kind of a cult reputation because it's nuts. The Curious Dr. Hump. And that movie from the 60s, black and white movie, but it has a monster who looks a lot like Carlisle, only imagine if Carlisle got conked on the head like a cartoon character and made his eyes spin around goofy, and then you stuck a blinky light on his forehead. It had a monster that kind of looked like Carlisle with a blinky light on his forehead. Yeah, if you haven't seen that one, you'll need to know that. But the great news is, after all these years, this awesome piece of monster memorabilia and monster history from the distant past has been reissued in time for Halloween of 2025 by the weirdos at Trick or Treat Studios. I don't know if I've ever mentioned them to you before. This is a Trick or Treat Studios product, and the great thing about it, it's just like the ones from the 70s. It even smells like a vinyl mask from the 70s. Don't sniff masks, kids. I'm just saying, I can tell this is a vinyl. And if you need more proof, it's made of black, shiny vinyl, just like the Carlisle masks were back in the day. There was also a later version of Carlisle, resculpted by the legendary Jordu Shell, but that was much later and was a little bit different sculpture. It's a wonderful thing too. You might want to check out my old Mask Fan Attic segment on that particular mask, the Don Post Carlisle. But this one from 2025 is pretty amazing. It looks exactly and like the old ones, and holding it in my hands, it feels, it looks, it has the weight, it has the heft, it has the substantial quality, and it has that great dead, sad, sort of mournful expression that original Carlisle had. And there were some minor differences because there were some, as there were with a lot of Don Post masks. Not everybody notices it, but there were some small differences over the years, like some of these strands, these shocks of hair were slightly different, repositioned just a little bit on some molds, because sometimes things were remolded and slightly different sculptures were used. Now, one cool thing about this one too is right on the back there, and we'll hold it up for the big close-up. Ready for my close-up, Mr. DeKill. Look at that. I don't know if you can see that, but that little bar on the back is just like it used to be on the old ones, and it says, and I quote, a reading from Carlisle, 1967 and 2024 Trick or Treat Studios brought this to us. And it says Don Post Studios on there too, by the way. Do you see that? It says Don Post Studios on there. Man, that's cool. This is just one of the coolest things ever. And they have painted it perfectly. It's got the black vinyl and then the daubed on, stippled on, sponge painted, glow in the dark color over that. What a great thing. For like 60 bucks, you can pick one of these up. Oh my gosh, snap one up, because I don't know how long they'll be making them. But it looks exactly like the ones from back in the late 70s. And it glows in the dark so that you can use it to scare your grandmother. And who would want to do that? So Carlisle, strong recommendation there from the Creepy Cheapie headquarters here in Chatfield, where it sounds like there's some sort of auto race taking place outside. Let's turn the music up and drown that out, can we?